Today on Hearts of Heroes.
There's a fire going on the back porch. It is cooking hot.
A raging apartment fire leaves people trapped in the flames.
Okay.
And a team of people had to jump in to help.
We're trying to get a ladder up on the Ward Street side.
My biggest fear was these victims are just gonna jump.
Plus, a New York City firefighter risks his life to save an elderly woman caught in a third-floor inferno.
She was frantic at that point. She was taking in a lot of smoke, as was I.
If not for the professionalism of these first responders, much could have been lost.
The people of Vernon, Connecticut take particular pride in their all-volunteer fire department. But it's not just the first responders who are dedicated to their community.
When a fire broke out in 2021, many neighbors stepped up to help, including a nurse, a National Guard member, and even a town administrator.
The quiet little town of Vernon, Connecticut is located about 10 miles outside the capital of Hartford. Here, the people share a deep sense of pride and civic responsibility.
We have some beautiful parks, very historic. A small town, but not too small. A little bit of everything.
We're a tight-knit community. This is a great place to live, and it's a great place to volunteer.
With a modest population of just under 30,000, the city depends on their brave team of volunteer firefighters. Kevin Bowman comes from a long line of 4 generations of local firefighters.
My grandfather was the chaplain of the Vernon Fire Department. My father was also my brother, and now currently my son.
We have the largest volunteer fire department in the state of Connecticut. We're very proud of our men and women in the volunteer fire department.
And that dedication to community would be tested one day in March of 2021.
That day I came into work and I was talking with the person I was going to be relieving at work. We were looking out the window and I happened to see the smoke.
As Brett walked out to investigate, he saw the fire just across the hospital parking lot. He immediately rushed over and called 911.
Vernon Police 911, where is your emergency?
Ward Street, there's a fire going on the back porch. It is cooking hot.
As luck would have it, Brett is not only a nurse and paramedic, but also a former firefighter.
As I'm on the phone with 911, kind of my firefighter training, first arriving unit on scene kind of thoughts start kicking in.
Because of Brett's experience as a firefighter, he knew to gather as much information as he could. He began surveying the scene to relay all the details first responders would need.
I started doing the 360. I located the fire and what side of the building it was on, but I also discovered that there was 2 people hanging out a window that were trapped.
Like the second floor's trapped. The second floor's trapped right there.
Nathan Pisani is a member of the National Guard and lives in the building next door. He smelled the smoke and headed over to help.
Get back, guys, get back.
Backside of the building had heavy visible flames going from the second floor all the way up to the 3rd floor. From what I could see, primarily concentrated on the back patios. Just started banging on doors, trying to alert people that there was an active fire on the building.
By this time, Kevin had gotten a call about the fire. Not from 911, but from his barber who works up the street.
He says, "Do you know that there's a house on fire on Union Street?" And I said, "No." He goes, "There's people hanging out the windows. You need to get there now."
At that time, firefighter Bowman was the only one at the station, and he knew he had no time to lose.
I jumped in the truck and I responded by myself because I could tell by the tone of his voice. And I hadn't even gotten all my equipment on at that point.
When he arrived, Brett met him at his truck.
I pulled up and he jumped right up to the side of the truck and he's screaming at me. You've got people trapped on the 3rd floor.
At that moment, Brett's firefighter training kicked in.
I went to the back of the truck, pulled the 24-foot ladder off of the truck and started carrying it over to the building because I knew Kevin was going to need a few minutes to kind of orient himself and figure out what he needed to do.
As Brett carried the ladder to the building, Officer Allison Lawrence showed up.
When I came around the corner, I saw Brett running towards the building with a ladder. So I met him at the building and saw a male and a female hanging out the window, crying for help.
We're trying to get a ladder up on the Ward Street side.
With the smoke and flames surrounding the trapped couple, Kevin had a frightening realization.
And I started to climb the ladder and realized that it's short. It's short by like 3 feet. And I don't even have my equipment on at this point. My biggest fear was these victims are just gonna jump because they said the fire was in the room with them.
Coming up, firefighters are left with few options.
There's already heavy black smoke coming out of their window, so we know this is a one-shot deal. It's now or never.
But first, a safety tip.
Wildfires produce massive amounts of smoke, making navigating the affected area very challenging.
If you have to evacuate during a wildfire, be sure to turn on the exterior and interior lights of your home. This will help firefighters locate your building in the smoke and increases the likelihood of saving the structure.
If you're evacuating, stay safe, stay prepared, and leave a light on for these heroes. They'll appreciate it.
On the evening of March 29, 2021, a fire broke out in an apartment building in Vernon, Connecticut, trapping 2 people on the 3rd floor.
Okay.
Volunteer firefighter Kevin Bowman arrived in just minutes and was one of the only first responders on scene. Luckily, a group of heroes had also assembled.
Everybody, as soon as they got there, everybody was just doing whatever they could with whatever they had.
But as they set up the ladder to rescue the people, they realized it wasn't tall enough to reach the window.
I remember seeing these people looking down at us, and when we raised the ladder, it came up short. We're an engine company. We don't carry a whole slew of ladders. That's what the ladder truck's for. So it was wild.
Just then, backup firefighters pulled up.
When we arrived at this building, you could tell it was a very large, 4-story wood frame building, and it had heavy fire from the 2nd all the way to the 3rd floor on the exterior porches.
Vernon Town Administrator Michael Percaro was at his office nearby when he heard about the fire. He also raced over to help.
There was just a flurry of activity happening because the building was burning very quickly, and it was pretty clear that people needed to respond that were there as quickly and efficiently as possible.
But there was still the question of how to get the frightened couple down from the burning building.
The challenge was just the amount of smoke that was pushing out from behind the victims, because usually it's smoke that gets to victims before fire does.
There was really only one option: work with what they had.
We're gonna make this work. We don't have a choice. There's already heavy black smoke coming out of their window, so we know this is a one-shot deal. It's now or never. This is going to work.
Once again, bystanders did whatever they could to take part. Nathan held one side of the ladder, while Michael held the other. Officer Lawrence stood behind the ladder, holding on to keep it from falling away from the wall.
I put a pack on and I go up the ladder, and there was a young lady that was hanging out of that 3rd-story window.
With the top floor of the building crumbling, firefighter Blake St. John climbed up to rescue the woman fast.
She was very anxious, rightfully so. So I had to kind of brace her onto the ladder and kind of support her legs as we got onto the rungs, just because there was a high risk of falling. So I wanted to make sure she was safe.
Once her feet were securely on the top rung, firefighter St. John escorted her down the ladder.
Okay.
What I saw when I held onto that ladder was pure heroism. I saw Officer Allison Lawrence holding that ladder with her back to the building while burning embers, debris from the building was falling on her head. Literally at one point, panes of glass were smashing over the top of her head.
Next, firefighter Stan Landry climbed up to rescue the man, who was understandably agitated.
Very excited, anxious, a little hesitant to come out on the ladder until I got up there, but as soon as I was there, he was pretty much willing to come out. He was ready to go.
Smoke inhalation, I take it, or you got any other injuries?
The couple suffered some smoke inhalation, but were otherwise, and thankfully, fine. After the rescue was over, Brett approached firefighter Bowman.
He says, is there anything else that I can do for you? And I said, do you know how to dress a fire hydrant? He goes, I do. I said, go over there and help that guy with it.
After he finished his hero's work at the fire, Reinhardt went back and finished his shift at the hospital.
I told him before he left, I said, I need your information. I wanted to make sure this guy got recognized. I would have been in big trouble without him that day.
With the help of these good Samaritans, firefighters were able to safely rescue everybody from the building. Recently, Sheldon Yellen, from our sponsor, Belfour Property Restoration, had the opportunity to meet this unique group of heroes.
Chief, you know, we spoke earlier, and you've talked about how heroic these actions are. Tell me what you feel about all these people.
This just exemplifies the word hero, the word selflessness, the word helping others. To have perfect strangers come up to other people in their time of need. We had a horrific situation, people trapped, the right people in the right place at the right time, and it just all came together, and everybody made it out.
I couldn't be more proud of the work of these humble heroes. Officer Lawrence, when I was holding the ladder, there was window pane pieces smashing on her head, and Brett putting the ladder there. Firefighter Bowman is a one-man band. He did the work of 4 or 5 firefighters by himself because he knew he had to get done. That's humble heroism.
It's not an ideal situation by any means, but given what we had to work with, we had to make that work.
If I could just take a minute on behalf of millions and millions of people across this country to say thank you to you guys, because you made an oath, you made a commitment, and you do it without consciously thinking about it. It's your normal reaction. Please accept our gratitude. Thank you, guys. I mean it. Thank every one of you. Thank you. Officer, thank you. Nate, thank you. Brett,
Thank you.
good man.
Thank you.
Chief,
Thank you for getting the stories out. It's important.
thank you.
Coming up, a New York City fire department performs a daring rescue operation.
He had to basically swing by the window to get past the heavy fire and go up and grab the woman that was on the fire escape.
For a firefighter, one of the more distressing calls can be for an apartment complex fire in the middle of the night. Chances are there are people, and multiple people sometimes, trapped inside.
Luckily, the New York City Fire Department is one of the best trained units in the world who are always willing to put their lives on the line for those in need.
Adjacent to New York's iconic Times Square and Broadway sits the bustling neighborhood of Hell's Kitchen. Since the 1980s, this once working-class area is now home to trendy restaurants, clubs, and historic low-rise apartment buildings.
It's got a lot of history, a lot of cool little spots and restaurants. There's always something new and exciting going on in this neighborhood.
The diverse cityscape means the New York City Fire Department has to be prepared for almost anything.
There's so many different kind of buildings here. There's so many different responses, whether it be fires or car accidents. We recently had a hurricane the other day, so we train for everything.
New York is known for its busy streets and densely populated neighborhoods. Because of this, engine drivers, or chauffeurs, are a vital part of any rescue operation. New York's fire and rescue team would rely heavily on their chauffeurs when a fire broke out in a 5-story apartment complex in June of 2021. Around 1 a.m., 911 began receiving frantic calls.
Getting a call that time of night usually indicates that people are home. So that's another thing that registers with us. Like, there's a good chance that there's gonna be people there that are gonna be in need of help.
Firefighter Harwood jumped in the engine as the chauffeur raced them to the scene.
The safety concerns from the initial response is first and foremost getting to the building. So our chauffeur did a great job of getting us there safely.
I'm proud to say that units arrived within just a few minutes.
Once there, it was clear. This was a massive fire.
You could see heavy fire blowing out of the 3rd floor window, as well as heavy smoke coming out of the 3rd floor and the 4th floor.
I saw heavy fire out of several windows on the 3rd floor. Shortly into the fire, there were several people that popped out onto the fire escape and they needed to be rescued from the fire escape.
Because it was a corner building with multiple tenants on both sides, the chauffeur's positioning of the engine was vital.
Multiple 1045. He did a phenomenal job by putting us in a great spot, so he got coverage of the one side of the building and exposure 4. From there, he was able to navigate and really reach us to where we needed to be.
Command, stand by. The firefighter's first job, of course, get people out.
Our top priority, obviously, is the civilians of this great city. We want to make sure we have members that are in the building searching for them, and we want to make sure that we can get to them and get them out of a dangerous situation or dangerous place as quickly as possible.
As the ladder engines extracted survivors from windows and fire escapes, Lieutenant Joshua Presida's team went inside the building.
We operated on the 3rd floor above the fire department. Once we maneuvered to the floor above, I said, hey, there's probably people in here. It's the middle of the night. I said, search this apartment. And I went and searched the apartment directly over the fire by myself.
As Lieutenant Presida's team went floor to floor, pulling people from the flames, firefighter Harwood was outside the building, just trying to get to all the terrified people.
My initial plan to enter the apartment was to take the bucket up to the fire apartment window and gain entry as fast as I could and search for victims.
But as he was about to enter the burning building, he was told there was an even more dire rescue needed.
Command to rescue.
I heard my chauffeur yelling back to me, letting me know that there was a victim hanging out of the 4th floor window on the floor above.
The person was an 80-year-old woman, and the flames were right outside her door. Coming up, firefighter Harwood puts his life on the line to rescue that woman trapped by the fire.
She was taking in a lot of smoke, as was I.
But first, another safety tip.
Natural gas leaks are an invisible threat that cause over 4,000 fires a year.
That's why it's so important to keep the area around your gas appliances clear and have your lines checked regularly. And if you ever smell gas from an unknown source, get out, call 911 immediately.
When it comes to natural gas safety, it's generally best to leave it to the pros and be as safe as possible.
In the early morning hours of June 16, 2021, a 2-alarm fire broke out in a 5-story apartment complex in Hell's Kitchen, New York. Dozens of people were trapped inside a burning building.
There was a large volume of fire blowing out of several windows on the 3rd floor. Our ladder companies are tasked with doing the searches for civilians on that floor because there was extension of fire above the fire floor. And I also have to make sure that we have ladder companies searching the floors above.
Firefighter Derek Harwood was preparing to enter through a 3rd floor window. Then he heard there was a woman trapped and calling for help.
My goal was to get into the fire apartment, but on my way to the apartment was when I was notified that there was a victim hanging out of the floor above.
The woman was in her 80s. There was high heat, heavy smoke, and she needed to get out of there quickly.
Harwood immediately turned his attention to the frantic woman.
Firefighters often have to change their focus at the drop of a hat. When a new crisis arises, they immediately switch gears and rely on their training and quick thinking to save those in peril.
But power lines and flames shooting from the windows made Harwood's rescue extremely dangerous.
Because of the wiring and the way that the restaurant was set up with the little outside seating, he had to basically swing by the window very, very close, kneel down, like duck down in the bucket to get past the heavy fire and go up and grab the woman.
The woman was helped out to the fire escape by a firefighter inside the building. With his chauffeur guiding the bucket, Harwood began making the rescue.
At that point, I lifted the woman over the fire escape into the bucket and signaled for my chauffeur to bring us down as I shielded the woman from heavy smoke and high heat. And again, my chauffeur did a great job of just bringing us down and getting her as well as myself to safety.
Once the woman was on the ground, everyone breathed a sigh of relief.
Bringing the woman to safety, it's very gratifying. It's a great feeling. It's our job. We train for this every day. I know all the other guys rely on me to be where I'm supposed to be, and if all those guys weren't where they were supposed to be, I couldn't be in a position to do what I did that night.
And that's especially true of the chauffeurs, who did such an incredible job that day.
The rescue that was made by Ladder 21 was extraordinary. Once again, I have to give credit to my chauffeur who put us in that great position and able to use the tower ladder bucket to get 2 sides of the building.
We have an immense level of trust for each other in this fire department. Everybody considers each other brothers. We know that we have to rely on each other to do everything.
You can do great things if you believe in each other and believe in yourself and challenge yourself and expect greatness.
Now,
Nobody wants to be in a fire, but we should absolutely plan for it. There are steps you can take right now to keep yourself safe.
So remember to follow those safeguards and trust that if you're ever in an emergency situation, heroes will be there to come to your rescue.
Thanks for spending some time with us, and we hope you'll come back next time on Hearts of Heroes.